Hello and welcome to Vine Street Studios in the heart of Richmond Hill, Ontario. I'm Charlie McGowan. Tonight, joining me will be Peter Del Grosso. He'll be a co-host of the show on an ongoing basis, and he's going to lead us through the process of finding, purchasing, and restoring a Generation 1 Camaro. A little bit about Peter's background is he's been doing this as a technician for 40 years and has restored about 10 of these wonderful cars. So if any of you out there should ask who would be the best person to go to for this type of project, then there's only one guy in my mind who comes to the fore, and that's Peter. So let's just get over to his workshop and see how he is. Buonasera, mio amico.
There you go, Charlie.
Yeah, buonasera.
How are you, Charlie? Buonasera to you too.
Come va? Come te la passi?
Bene, bene.
Molto bene.
Molto bene, molto bene. How are you, my friend?
Hey, pretty good, Peter. Pretty good. You know, I was just thinking, this isn't really the first vlog. I mean, we're saying this is the first of a series of vlogs, but if I think back, what was it, 2 years ago, I came up to your place and we did something like a vlog. Do you recall that?
You got a good memory, Charlie. It was 2 years ago this summer where we actually, the first time you came over, we went for a ride in the car. We did a little vlog. We went to a car show. We walked around. We talked a little about different cars that were there. And yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, that was a fantastic night and really interesting. And that's what got me interested in what you actually do. And you know, it prompted me to ask more questions about the process. And I guess that's what brought us here tonight.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm waiting on the questions. I'm ready to answer anything that that you have to ask.
Yeah, and also I'd just like to remind the viewers that are out there, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat line, because the chat line is open here on StreamYard and also on YouTube, and we'll try to pick up on those as we go through the show here. I was just thinking, 40 years, Peter. That means you're probably 45, and you probably started at 5 years old, right?
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you so much.
That means I'm about 48, right?
Yeah, so, thank you. 40. Yeah, 40 years is a long time, Charlie.
Yeah, sure it is. Yeah. Yeah. So as you know, I do a little bit of sketching, Peter, and what I thought I'd do is, and I already started this. I've done it.
Nice.
I started a little sketch. The geometry is still to be fixed, but I've got the general idea of it. So I think what we'll do is every week I will develop this more, and at some point through the coming weeks, we're going to pick a winner, right?
Oh, nice.
How we'll pick that, I don't know, but what I'll do is I'll finish it. It'll be on nice paper, and I'll sign it, and you'll sign it, and then we'll select a winner, and we'll send it to them.
And we become famous.
Yeah, there's every chance that they'll become. Well, there's a guy, Julian Del Grosso. This is a collab we've been waiting for. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And Kristen, hi, Kristen. You know, glad you've been able to drop by.
Hi, Kristen.
I know you're both very busy. Yeah. Anyway, look, I think we should get right down to business here, Peter. And, you know, let's start out by, your background. You're a technician. You've been doing it 40 years. What drove you to do that? What was the focus that took you down that road to become a technician, and your experience with classic cars and how that all came about?
Well, to be honest with you, there's a lot of stories, Charlie, but there's a lot of them that come to my mind that are actually etched from the time that I started enjoying working on cars as a youngster. I used to work on mini bikes. I used to build mini bikes. I had a passion for engines and motorized stuff. So uh, I got into the trade. I got my license to work for as a technician for many years. During that process, I remember back in the early 60s and sorry, the late 60s, early 70s. I remember back in the day, I don't know who's out there that remembers, I used to play ball hockey on the street. We used to have friends out there, and my neighborhood was full of neighbors that them and their friends had these muscle cars. They used to come by all the time, and we'd be playing ball hockey, and you'd hear these things rumbling down the street and sounding like they're going to stall in the exhaust, and their friends would come over. I'd seen Challengers, Cudas, Darts, Camaros, and every time I saw one, I thought to myself, "Wow!" Like just the sound would it would impress me. And then there was also in the mid 70s, I used to go to my uncle's place to visit, and there was a neighbor of his that had a silver 69, and I remember the car like it's still in my brain, and that's the car I fell in love with ultimately. But the Camaro was always a passion for me, and it's something that I took from the early age all the way to now, and I enjoy the look. I enjoy their what they mean, all that stuff, Charlie.
So you mentioned a silver 69.
Hmm.
Was that a common color? How many colors were there available in those days?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. There was a time that was Cortez silver, that car, but there was many. There's probably about 15 to 20 different colors, varying from the most popular to to the rarest colors, right? So there's quite a few.
And so once you get into the trade and started learning the tools, um, you got obviously got an interest because guys in the neighborhood had the cars.
Yeah.
Did they allow you to drive them? What got you going to buy your first car?
Well, once I got of age and I started to go into apprenticeship school, and I met a few friends that were still friends even to date. They had already started on the muscle cars, and I just fell in love with it. And my first car that I purchased was back in the day was a '70 Chevelle. I'll never forget it. Had the 396 4-speed. I enjoyed it. I did a little bit of work on it, ended up selling it, and I ended up buying all my technician tools. And then from then it just began to search and source out and buy and fix and restore as I found them.
Uh, Talking about a Chevelle,
Hmm.
uh, I came to Canada in 1973, and my first car was a yellow Chevelle Malibu
Hmm.
4-door, 6-cylinder. Right,
Yeah.
that was the first car I had when I came here.
Yeah, like Chevelle it's a nice car, but what drew me was the '69 Camaro. The next car I bought was a '70, was the second generation Camaro. Did a lot of work on that. Ended up selling it, and I finally got into the first generation, which was my the '69 um, blue car that I had. I purchased that, did a little bit of work on it, ended up selling that, and I ended up buying a Hugger Orange Camaro, which I had for over 20 years after I restored it. It was funny because I purchased it for $11,000, brought it home in a cube van, all apart, and it was quite challenging and quite fun to do.
Wow, what an experience that must have been. Um, so what about the history of the car itself? I read somewhere um, that the GM engineers were told to build a small ferocious animal that eats Mustangs. And in this case, it certainly put Ford on its heels.
Yeah, it goes back to the 1966. There was the Trans Am series, the SCCA was running, and the Mustangs, the Dodge, the Cudas, they were dominating the circuit. So GM wanted a piece of the action. The only criteria was it had to be a 5-liter, no more, in displacement, engine displacement, in order to compete. So they ventured off and they came out in September of 66. They came out with the first 67 Camaro with a 302 displacement, which ultimately ended up being one of the most desirable Z28s that you could purchase to date, with only 602 of them made. As they broadened their horizon, Camaro, they came out, they built the Z28. They came out with the base car Camaro, which was a 6-cylinder 230 engine, and their engine displacements went from a 307 all the way up to a 427. So there's a lot of information there that can be taken, and we can review at a later date too as well.
Yeah, and how available were these cars?
To be honest with you, in 67, they produced, of all models, 220,000. In 68, they produced 235,000, and in 69, they produced 243,000. That was overall all their cars, from the 6-cylinder all the way to their biggest C.O.P.O 427.
So
they were available.
Yeah. So what you've told us is that theoretically there still should be lots of them available from those years.
Yeah, I wish. They become harder and harder to get, Charlie. And for those that are out there that are looking for one and that aspire to get one, there's so many different things and that you have to take into consideration when you're doing that jump. And it's more so what you're looking for and what your income or disposable cash that you want to spend on it.
And well, what kind of price were you looking at in 1967 or 69?
Yeah. Back in the day, they were worth anywhere between, depending on the options on the car, you could have picked them up for as low as $4,000 up to $6,000-7,000 for the really higher option big motor vehicles.
And what was an apprentice mechanic earning in those days?
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Oh, but everyone, I don't even talk about. I guess maybe $2, $3, $4, $5 an hour in back in the early 60s. Yep.
Yeah, so it must have been pretty challenging trying to come up with the coin to buy one.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's pretty challenging nowadays too to come up with it too. So they're very sought after. The supply is limited. I'm sure there's a lot of them that have ended up at the scrap yards, crushed and turned into Pepsi cans and stuff. So there's a ton of them that were available. For what's left right now, it's very hard to see. You see them on the market, but again, it boils down to what you're looking for and what your budget is and what you decide you want to do with it.
Yeah, so maybe you can speak a little bit about the models themselves, the individual models, and what was attractive about each of them, and the price difference, even today. If you can just sort of fill in some gaps there.
Right. So for myself, I've always been a Z28. Like I had a passion for those cars there. They're always, for me, they were the ultimate car for myself to own, based on their rarity and also the production. Like in 67, like I said previously, only 602 Z28s were built. In 68, there was almost 7,200, and in 69 there was over 21,000 built. So obviously the more rare they are, the more expensive they be. But in all fairness, the 69 right now is the most sought after. People they go crazy for it, and they look for them and they try to find them, and it's like a diamond in the rough. But when you do find it, depending on the condition, yeah, it's worth every penny that you purchase.
And so, what kind of rubber did they run on in those days? Was it your standard Goodyear stock, or?
Yeah, they were your bi-ply tires. There were non-radials. They were E70 15s. They weren't like your biggest tires, but I can tell you straight out, when you swapped them out and you went to a bigger tire and you stretched the legs on it, they were built to go back in the day. Not compared to what they are today, but back in the day they were quite the machine.
And I guess you didn't use snow tires.
I bet you they were. That's why they ended up in the scrapyard, because they probably rusted out. So it's unfortunate, but I'm sure they were driven as daily drivers back in the day. They would drive them to work, and then on the weekends they would put a tow bar on the front bumper, strap the slicks on it, and go to the track and do a few passes.
And so, as a young guy, did you go to the racetrack?
I went a few times. I don't want to talk about it too much because we did a little bit of street racing and stuff like that, which is kind of frowned upon. But I remember doing some of that stuff back in the day and having some fun with some buddies at late evenings or early morning. It was fun. If I think back of it right now, it wasn't the best, but you know what? It filled my nights.
And so, I imagine you've got lifelong friendships here.
Yeah, I do. I have quite a few friends that we keep in touch all the time, that we speak in Canada and the US. It's quite a nice market. I enjoy it. For me, it's about the chase and the restoration, rather than the driving of the cars. Eventually, when they're completed, they're beautiful to have. They're nice to drive, and you enjoy it. But for me, it's about the chase and the build that drives me. And you know what? Some people are more interested in purchasing a car that's a driver. Although they're drivers, I like them, but I look for cars that need to be resurrected.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of the journey that you're going to take us on over
Yeah,
the coming weeks. Like, there's so many topics that we're going to have to touch on, because let's assume for a moment that we've got a variety of viewers on here this evening. Some of them might just be young guys who are interested in getting into that type of car, or it may be a guy like us who wants to have a second car that he can rebuild and take to car shows. And it's two different journeys. And I'm sure there are many other journeys in between.
right. And like I said, it boils down to your journey and what you want. And we will talk a little bit more in depth regarding the models, like from 67 all the way to 69. You touched a little bit on it before, Charlie. There's a lot of models. There's your base cars, there's your convertibles, there's your SSs, there's your Z28s, there's your rally sports which is another option, which is very sought after if you can find them. We'll go down that one episode at a time. There's a lot of information on these cars, and it's overwhelming. But if I can help anybody source something out and give my opinion or offer some advice to, that's what we're here for. That's what I can offer.
Yeah, that's great. And I notice that we've got a couple of people. This person, Chris Peter, I've heard that name before. Or Sabil, and excuse me, Nakvi Shah. Hi, not sure who you are, but hi, welcome to the show, and I hope you're enjoying this. So, we've got about 10 minutes left because we plan to have a 30-minute vlog and see how it develops. So before we go any further, I have to bring you around to if you can give us some kind of an outline on the purchasing of a vehicle and what to look for. And I'm assuming at this point, you've maybe made up your mind what you're after.
Right. And that's a $1 million question, Charlie. I guess it boils down to the individual. So I guess when you're starting your hunt for that particular car that you're looking for, I guess you have to decide on what you want. Is it a 67? Is it a 68 or a 69? What are your options? Are you looking for an RS car with the hideaway lights? Are you looking with air conditioning, which were available back in the day, except on Z28s and C.O.P.Os and the bigger high horsepower engines? But you have to look at, what is your budget? Do you want to restore a car? Do you want a driver, something that you can purchase off somebody that they've done the majority of the work and just needs a little bit of TLC? Do you want something that's fully restored, that somebody's gone over it with a fine tooth comb, or do you want original? There's a big market right now for pro touring and resto mods where they take an old body of a Camaro, which is back from the 67s to 69, and they'll retro it with LS motors, fuel injection, 700R4 trannies, 5-speed Tremec transmissions. The sky's the limit. It all depends on what your budget is and what is it that you want. But like I say, I'm more of an original guy. I like to have the cars that mimic what they were back in the 60s, and do them that way rather than going into a resto mod, which I love them. I see some of the stuff that's out there. It's just incredible. But the resto mods I consider artwork. It's like buying a piece of art. When you're looking at a resto mod, it's somebody's interpretation of how they like to see that old car and make it drive like today's car. And obviously opinions different from buyer to buyer, but it's all on somebody's perception. Whereas an original car, when I build them back to original, the person that's buying that car or looking for that particular car, they know when they come and see that car that it's going to be the way it was from the factory, and there's no second guessing on what they did with the interior or the gauges, or they know what the car is all about. They're all great cars. Anybody that puts these cars back on the road that resurrects a piece of history, my hats go off to them. And it's just a fun project and challenging and a great hobby for me.
So it's all very interesting and mind-boggling to think what you have to go through, not only to source a vehicle, but the whole workflow process, that you kindly are going to lay out for those interested in the coming weeks. But just for a moment, before we see if there's any questions, let's say a young guy is out there to find a nice car, and he's willing to do a little bit of work on his own, or maybe his buddies are going to help him. Maybe he works as a mechanic, or he works in a body shop, whatever. What kind of money are we talking about here?
That's a good question.
Just to give people an idea of what's ahead.
Right. So again, it boils down to what you're looking for. Number two is you're obviously looking for something that's buildable, restorable, or that you can touch up, whether it's you or your friends, or you're gonna lay it out to somebody else to do. But these cars here in today's market, you'll be very hard pressed to find anything for $30,000 of any condition. If you come across them, you can find some nice little drivers that, I think that's probably the budget that you're looking at for a driver. If you're buying something that's restorable, again, it might be a little bit cheaper, but you also have to take into consideration that there's going to be additional costs to get that back on and make it roadworthy.
I've got a question here from Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
How many have you restored? And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, if I think back, I think I'm on my 10th one right now that's partially covered in the back here. I've done 10 of them. Quite a few of them were actually frame off restorations where you actually take them apart nut and bolt and restore every nut and bolt on that car to the best of your ability and to what's available. But yeah, I've done probably over 10 of them. And I used to come home at night sometimes, and I'll never forget. My boys would go to sleep, and I'd be in the garage, and at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and Paula would come out and say, you know what are you doing? You work on cars all day long. I said, this is not working on cars. This is relaxation for me. I'll sit there and put a screw in a dash 10 times before I say, okay, it's good enough, right? It was more of a stress relief for me.
Yeah, that's great information, Peter. We've got a visitor from London. I presume he's saying London, England. It's Yusra Sharif. Maybe you can tell us if it's London, Ontario, or London, England. But yeah, it's amazing. And talking about doing work at home, I'm assuming that not only you've got a heater up there in the ceiling, but the garage is fully insulated.
Yes, it is. So again, it's a hobby for me. I enjoy it. It was a lot easier when I was younger, but the passion still burns inside me, regardless of age and physical and my physical condition. So I work a lot more smart now, and I do what I can in my workshop. I'm a private guy. I like to do things myself. And I just like the outcome when you take that car out for the first time and nobody knows about it, or nobody's seen it, or never just heard about it. It's just that's just what burns inside me, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. It just so happens that our friend Yusra is actually in London, England. So nice. That's tremendous. That now they're 4 or 5 hours ahead of us, so it's pretty early in the morning over there. And Yusra, I hope that you can join us in the weeks to come. And do you have an interest in these particular vehicles? If so, drop us a note, come up with some other questions that you can pose to Peter.
We'll get more in depth with these things as we progress, Charlie. That can provide all kinds of information if people are asking certain questions about cars and what they're looking for and what recommendations, or what do you do with this, or what do you do with that. That's where we're here to open up a little bit of my knowledge. And I guess I don't know everything, but I've been around it long enough that I could be a pretty good resource.
Yeah, and DZer guy, if that's the name pronounced correctly, DZer guy. Maybe it's Nissan. I'm not sure. He's asking, or he or she is asking, which one is your favorite restoration of all the ones you've done?
Wow. That's a tough question. They're like your kids. Not one is better than the other. You love them all, right? But if I have to think back, again, that's so hard. The 69 Hugger Orange car, my 69 Z, that one there was probably the most closest to me, because it was probably one of the first full restoration. Like I said, I bought that car in boxes, and I basically had to decipher and pick everything apart and make sure everything was there, and then have to reassemble it after somebody took it apart. But they're all good. The one I'm building right now is going to be it's just going to be a super car.
And that's the one behind you, right?
Yeah, it's all covered up, sleeping right now.
Yeah. So how many do you have on the go? That's a more complicated question.
Yeah, right now it's this one here. I still have a 68 Z28, which it's in hibernation right now. It should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. I had a 70 I just sold as well right now. But this one here is my next project, and I'm always looking for other ones. I'm always looking for more.
We've got another visitor here Arslan Kamal, hashtag Del Grosso Army. He's obviously a big fan of the family.
Right.
So, you know, there you go, Peter. We've been chatting for 30 minutes. Do you know Judah's Garage? He fixed Rod Wave's Corvette.
Oh, nice. I don't know him, but be a good resource because I am looking for a Corvette right now.
And Kristen is saying we need a garage tour, Peter, and that will be in upcoming episodes. Peter's going to take us around, show us all his equipment, his sandblaster. You need to get your earmuffs on for that one, and you'll get an idea and sense of what he does there in the evenings.
Yeah, whatever I can offer, Charlie. Like my brain is open to people, and the knowledge I can source out to them or provide them, I'd be more than happy to do that. I got the experience to guide them in the right direction if need be.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not sure where this one's coming from. Storm Ray. Hey, can you post the house tour, Mr. Charlie McGowan? I don't know if this is a Kristen thing. It could very well be, and it's got nothing. That would have nothing to do with cars. Although there's a couple of cars back there somewhere.
God bless them all.
Yeah, look, people are just seem to be dropping in, so we're just going to play it by ear, and we're going to go a little bit over the 30 minutes because if people are asking questions, we'll just hang in with them as long as we can. Gabriel Victoria Tordorf, hello. Well, yes, Gabriel, hello to you too.
Hello, Gabriel.
And Arslan Kamal said, I guess he's talking about Judah's Garage. He fixed the Hellcat too.
Nice.
Yeah, nice that fix. Yeah. Anyway, so maybe you can talk about what's coming up next week. If I just look at our notes, I might be able to pull something out. Okay, so
what we'll do, Charlie, we'll talk a little bit about the cars and going into that stage of purchasing the cars. We'll get a little bit more in depth to that. What to look for. You know, we'll talk a little bit about the options. You know what I mean? What kind of car are you looking for? We'll get more in depth with your budget and what to look for when you're out there. Like, you know, I'll give you some resources of where to find cars. Unfortunately, in Canada, the resources are a lot more thin than they are in the US. But there's cars out there. Like it's just.
And how do you get a car? How do you find a car in the US?
Just networking with a lot of people that I know down there. If I put the word out to them that I'm looking for a particular car, they provide me you know, different avenues and sellers. There's also internet, your typical you know, your Kijiji, Craigslist, but those are cars that are out there that everybody can see. I look for the diamonds in the rough stuff that's pretty much unheard of or nobody's seen.
What happens when you come to the border and you've got a car on a trailer?
Well, right now with the borders closed, the last few cars, the last 2 or 3 cars I purchased in the US, I had them all transported up. Rather than me going down with my trailer and picking them up and coming across. But yeah, I get them transported. They drop them off. You pay all your fees and they drop it off right in front of your driveway.
And what kind of fees are included there? I guess there's some kind of import duty.
Yeah, as far as the transportation, it obviously depends on where it's coming from. As far as duties on like the cars that are over 25 years old, there's no duties on them. It's just more you have to pay your taxes and your brokerage fees, and yeah, and comes across.
Yeah, Lorenzo Girolamo. I don't know if he's a friend of yours. Hey, Pete, looking forward to some restoration info.
Yeah, no problem. Just let me know what you need and where I can help you, and hopefully I can guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, so we've gone 5 minutes over time, which is not a big deal. Do you want to just go over what we're going to be talking about next week? I see it's maybe you can expand on it a little bit, but the planning stage, planning stage, original or pro towing, what to buy in year, etc., technical skills, budget. Maybe just give a brief overview of what that's going to include for next week.
Yeah, those are all great points, and what I mean by them, or what we can touch on, Charlie, is, again, looking at the car. Do you want what kind of money you have to spend? Are you technically, do you have the technical skills to do a lot of it yourself? Because I'll tell you right now, that'll save you a bundle. And then we can talk a little bit about the cars, on what you want to purchase and what my recommendations are. I can provide you what to look for when you're looking for these cars, as far as for pricing, for restoration purposes, what the costs will be. We can look at different breakdowns of how much everything's going to cost if you were to restore it. Those are all things that within certain guidelines we can provide.
Yeah, sounds great, Peter. Hey, listen, it's been a treasure trove of information here, and there's lots for people to consume and digest, and we've gone over our time slot, and as I said, that's okay, but maybe we should quit while we're ahead, as they say, and we'll plan to see everybody next week at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thanks very much, everybody that has jumped in with questions. And I see somebody's getting some buffering. Not really sure why that would be. Anyway, Peter, thanks very much for the time you took to pull this all together and share the information with us, and look forward to doing the same next week.
Thank you, Charlie. And it will get better. It'll get more exciting as you start to see some of the things that I've done and what's on the horizon. And it might help some people in some of the decisions they make when they're chasing their dreams and their cars.
Yeah, that's true, Peter. And just remind everybody, give us a big thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps us. Some people would say, "Oh no, Charlie, don't do that," but we'll go for the thumbs up.
No problem. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Thank you, and good evening from Richmond Hill. Bye for now.
Thank you, Charlie. Take care.